So we think that they did or they're not paying that for this and that.
Just testing out, can everyone hear? That's Chrisella.
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear also, thanks.
So we're still waiting on quorum, but if we need to get started.
Yeah.
Let's get started.
Yeah, I think we can call the meeting to order. We don't have quorum, so we can't vote on anything. So it is. So the first item is always, is there anyone from the public that has public comment, either here in the room or online? No? Okay. And next up is roll call. Nadia, do you have the attendance? Okay, Bruce Dickinson. Not online. Chris Iosa.
Oh, someone's just coming.
Dave Bachman here.
Here.
Debbie Walton.
She finished.
Gina Catherine.
Here.
Haley Purdy.
She's
What's that?
she's out.
She's out. Okay. John Epstein. Rochelle Lucas.
Here,
Then Kimmy Cruey is online.
Yep, I'm here.
Melinda Bell is not here. I see Nathan is online.
Hi, everyone.
Nina Stafford. Paul Cummings, welcome.
Here.
And I'm here as well. Okay, so next, are there any updates from the advisory committee? Anything that we would want to chat about before we get started? I did notice this week that a portion of HUD funding has come back. I don't know if we're talking about that today, but is that going to help?
Start
You're on.
top.
There you go.
Those updates.
I'm just segueing you into it.
Anyone else has other items? Right, well, should we jump in right in there?
Yeah,
For those of you who've been tracking our federal, what do we call it? Ebbs and flows.
chaos.
That is the federal government. We had a budget that was set to expire January 31st. We just got news of the House Appropriations Committee. They did release a consolidated Appropriations Act that affected our transportation and HUD, so THUD bill, which is bipartisan, so it is looking pretty good. And I will say it's expected to pass next week. And it's showing a slight uptick in our housing choice voucher program. So that is a good thing. Of course, as we know, upticks isn't quite matching with our rate of rent increases or the amount of rental assistance we need to meet all of our cap. So we still remain, frankly, at this place where we're hovering what we call shortfall. So we haven't been able to really pull new vouchers off of our wait list for a long time. And so that is not likely to happen with this new bill. And unfortunately, the public housing program does take a decrease in appropriation. So we still haven't fully, hasn't even passed yet. We'll have to come back and give you guys more updates of the impact of what that means to us as a housing authority when we go through the budget process. We've got Steve. Oh, and I'm here to welcome also, before we get into that, perfect segue to me introducing our new budget manager, Steve Netter. Steve comes from many years, 20 years at Intel. So we get to benefit from some of those changes and be able to great talent coming here. And Steve just started right in the nick of time to take over the budget. So we're thrilled to have Steve aboard. I don't know if we're intros later.
I was really just gonna say, on the heels of a national championship, he's a two-time graduate of Indiana University. So go guys won last year in the Hoosiers, so we're feeling really good, right? Really confident about this budget cycle.
Well done, well done. No pressure, Steve.
All good.
Also want to share with you a few updates. We, I don't know if Nadia or Nikki, maybe you guys can bring down, we've been sharing our annual report. Our department-wide annual report. What do you can bring one down? Maybe ask Brittany to bring one down.
Oh,
For those of you who were with the housing forum, we passed it out there. And really, it's our inaugural department-wide annual report. So that says, I'm really proud of the team to pull together all the various accomplishments and achievements we've done through all of our business lines. We had one for just home services in the past, so now this is including our housing authority work. And so what we've been doing is offering presentations to the different cities, some of whom have taken us up on that work. And so we presented with Tualatin, Beaverton, and now upcoming will be Forest Grove, actually Forest Grove already. And then Tiger, Sherwood, and Cornelius are up next. And it's really, are you gonna volunteer us?
No, just as a question.
Oh, okay.
Like, what kind of audience do you get when you go to a city? Like, who all tends to attend, and where do you have those kinds of discussions?
So it's generally through their regular agenda at
Okay.
their city councils.
Hmm.
So the presentation is to their mayor and their commissioners and councilors. And it's really an opportunity for them to ask questions of the department.
Okay.
And some have gotten a little bit more spicy than others, I'll put it that way. But I think there's just, we are evolving our whole homeless, there we go. You guys can take a look too. Our homeless and housing whole systems is showing that we're building infrastructure in all parts of the county.
Yeah.
The small towns, the bigger towns, the cities. And then, and then giving them a chance to hear what the current status is of those projects. And what the future is of some of those additional projects like access centers and Beaverton.
Sure.
And then, but I will say, generally the questions are more around homelessness than around affordable housing. I'm sure you're not surprised to hear that. And maybe Jill later on at Forest Grove PSH can go and talk to them. She was the one who did the Forest Grove presentation, but generally very supportive as well.
That's great.
When we do siting, and we're gonna talk a little bit about this, when we do siting and we are putting in new infrastructure, whatever that might be, we really do need those cities to support the work we're doing, and we do it in partnership with those city staff. We work on siting guidelines together, and it always goes better when we are in lockstep with those city partners. So this is just kind of us doing the roadshow, and like I said, some spicy, but generally a lot of gratitude for us to start to really tell that story. I'm just gonna I have to keep hearkening on the map page. Pages that do. Anyway, going back to the map. Here it is.
Wonderful picture that shows all of our built assets, not only on the homeless services side, but also on the housing side. So you can see that on the slide, on the map. Sorry, folks, on the call, you can't see the annual report. It has all of them. I thought we gave the hack members a copy of the soft version.
I think we did too. It's just sort of being able to have this in front of you. So I think there's been, I will say, some really, we started off 2026, frankly, with a bang. We did move on 2 purchases in end of 25. We're now in the midst of pretty intense neighborhood engagement and community engagement right now on 2 of them. So I just wanted to share with you all, we did launch our, what we call a good neighbor agreement process with the Oak Hills neighborhood based on the purchase we did actually closer to a year ago to do a transitional housing recovery project at the former Doubletree Hotel right on the corner of Cornell and 26. And I wish Bruce was here. Bruce was the one who first I think first heard of that acquisition back in the day. So it's just us sharing with you all. So if you hear out in the community any concerns or questions, please bring them back to us. We have a you can bring Nadia. Nadia can ask her community or ask her colleagues to kind of make sure we are getting questions answered as soon as possible. But the first with that engagement, we had a work session with our board also just a couple days ago that talked about the way we do community engagement. There's a whole process. We go through postcards, we notify everyone, we invite them in to talk to us. We have focus groups, we get time with them to meet our partners, particularly the operating partners. That's really the most crucial part. They're the ones who have to live, they're gonna live side by side with one another. And Helping Hands is our partner at that Cornell Road project, and just having them out there and talk about what it's like having a transitional housing recovery project in the middle of either residential or Main Street in all over Oregon was huge in terms of people understanding frankly, their success rate of being able to do it. And everywhere else in Oregon, including Seaside, including parts of Portland. So it's just sort of like no one neighborhood is more special than another neighborhood. It's just we're all building out a system and just recognizing we're all part of that. The other one I just want to make you all aware of, we did purchase another plot of land that will become the future of Pod Village in Aloha, across which is right off of, I'm forgetting the address offhand.
3390 Southwest 209. So it's south of TD Highway.
That's right, yeah.
And the southeast corner of TD Highway and 209.
So that's gonna be operated, so it's gonna be 60 pods. And it's gonna be operated by Open Door, who have done a few of these already for us, and they've been an incredible partner, especially with the Aloha pod, where we did do it in a church parking lot, really in the middle of a lot of single family homes, and they've come a long way. So our hope is we want to stop with all the temporary relocating of all these various pods. That's a lot of, frankly, energy and cost to keep relocating, keep finding areas. And so we have one, this new location is smack dab in the middle of Washington County, right in the middle of everything. So we're calling it Central County Home Safe Rest Village, right? So that's exciting. And then it's just, this is just my shout out to Nathan and all the other developers in the room. There's just having a lot of work we all do to reassure, and frankly, Dave, you're in the forefront all the time of how you guys, this is my sort of reaching out to you all, the work you guys have had to do for years and years and decades, frankly, to work with neighbors. A lot of fear that comes with any time you cite any one of these new projects, and shout out to you all who do it every day. Nathan, were you going to say something?
Thank you. Yeah, just you're right. It's I'm sure Dave can confirm this.
We can't hear you, Nathan, if you're speaking.
Oh.
He's trying to.
I'm sure it was gonna be good.
We have an audio issue, Nathan, so hold on.
What was the previous use for the Aloha site?
Oh, it's what?
The previous use that was there, was it vacant or is there something there?
It was the warehouse of a construction company,
Okay,
so they used it mostly for storage
Yep.
of materials.
okay.
And so there's no planned development there. It's just gonna be the Pod Village for the extended future at least.
So however long SHS.
And there was some backer concerns.
It's just starting right now.
Oh, it started.
Oh, yeah. Hundreds of emails. Maybe dozens, it's a little bit of exaggeration, but it's yeah.
That's a pretty active part of Washington County. I mean, I think Pot Village will actually have some structure to it. So.
Yeah. right close to where there's a satellite intel office.
Yeah.
Right near there. So we looked, I'll put it this way, while we're waiting, can Nathan talk?
So he's saying he agrees with you.
Okay.
Summary.
We can try again. I did try changing the speaker, if anyone wants to test that out, but.
Let's keep testing it, because we'll need our people to be able to talk.
Hello?
Sure. Nope, sorry, Nathan, we'll keep experimenting though.
Can you hear me?
I just want to share with our last update with you all is we got concept of submit concept endorsement approval for Metro for our 209 and 209 affordable housing Metro bond project. Need a better sort of go-to name on that.
You can help. You
You guys can help us, but it's always a temporary name. It's gonna end up being 87 units, mostly family-sized units. It's really exciting and sort of stage where we're at. I think you guys are gonna get an update later a little bit and just sort of where we are in all the various stages, but it really incorporating wetlands and nature space and giving people an opportunity to really enjoy that nature and green space around that. We are embarking on a budget. We'll come back to you at future months to talk about some more about that primer in terms of what we have to think about in budget, and then your adoption of that work before we submit it to the housing board. And finally, share a quick story with you all about one of our residents who lives in affordable housing development in Beaverton. She was really surrounded and really saw so much need from her neighbors, many of whom were seniors and people with disabilities. And she noticed that a lot of them were not getting nutrition and enough food. And so she decided to start her own food bank right there in her own community, and it's been so successful. She was able to get a 501c3 incorporation to really launch it as a nonprofit. And she's helping all of our fellow tenants at Holly Tree. Holly Tree is, if you don't recall, that's where we had our opening for our HP phase 2. And so she was one of the speakers when we had our grand opening. And it's just one of those little nugget stories of all the bigger impacts that happen when we have people together. So with that, I will turn it back over.
Thanks.
Oh, and now before I turn it, sorry, open it up to you all for questions.
On your public meetings, can we assist in any way? Would our presence be helpful? Would a letter of support that?
Actually, I think it would be very helpful to have maybe a couple of you at some of the future community meetings. I think we're trying to make sure all the current residents get first. Some of these we're actually facing capacity issues, but I think it would be really helpful to have you all. Let's maybe Nadia can connect up with you, Ryan, and maybe do a pitch of there's one that's coming. The first one that we're going to have in the Aloha pod is going to be February 24th. That could be really helpful. And then I do believe we have other meetings scheduled with Oak Hills. Looking at Paul. Sorry. Paul, there's not a problem there.
It's a very welcoming community.
They've got a very open, a very welcoming reception. What's it called? Community center. Very loud.
Yeah.
So, but we'll at least let you know when those are.
Yeah,
So
sure.
if you guys choose to come, that'd be great.
Any other questions or comments?
I actually one question on the food bank. So where is this resident? Where is the setting up the operations for the food bank? Is it in a unit, or how did she
do it?
Yeah, how did she do it?
I actually don't know. Does anyone else? Do you know?
From what I saw when I was at Holly Tree.
Yep.
They actually have a very, very large room. I think it's even larger than this conference room,
Okay.
where they have areas to stop for food to be dropped off. And then for folks to come and pick them up and bag them and take them to their respective homes.
So it's serving more than just Holly Tree.
I think it's mostly for Holly Tree residents themselves, but Holly Tree is a big building. It's, I think, almost 100 or over 100 units. And more than 100, folks.
Yeah.
And they're all for seniors, so it's a very large.
Yeah, I would add some investors that have invested in affordable housing are focused on like food deserts, and not that they're gonna provide additional funding in every case, but I think they can be very supportive. And so I think it's great if it's really that's initiative of a resident, but also really incorporating the community to support that through space and other things. That's awesome. So that's great.
Yeah, we're seeing a bigger and bigger need, and one of the design choices we're making at the Lua property, our first new construction project, is to have a food pantry adjacent to the community room. So we're kind of starting to plan in the future also for those needs.
Yeah.
Food insecurity is a big part of many of our households, and having that ability to have some kind of food pantry.
We're looking at a senior living community down in Canby that is essentially covering their patio area and creating small food banks at each of their apartment buildings, because it's a really low cost way of expanding square footage and putting some fridges and shelving in there. But yeah, seniors are feeling it right now, for sure.
Yeah, we actually, we have a property in Oregon City that's on 2 acres, so it has a larger kitchen. And one of our case managers opened, he actually, catered our gala last year. And he's opened his own business, and we support him monetarily. And he does cooking for the community. He hasn't made it to Washington County. He's been doing Clackamas and Multnomah County.
Okay.
And he will feed up to 150 participants. So our aid and assist community restoration participants in that home are helping doing the cooking and the distributing of the food. So he's creating purpose, connection, and feeding, hitting the food disparity at the same time. So
Get his contact information.
yeah, it's called Mental Meats. And if you go on our Facebook page, you'll see some of the postings of him, or on LinkedIn, I put some. But it's absolutely, he made chicken pot pies his last month. It's absolutely amazing. So he's doing some great work. And maybe we can entice him to come over to Washington. Yeah, and do some events. Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
It's great. Takes a village, right?
Yeah, takes a village, always.
Okay. So with that, I think we will pass it off to Nadia for the staff liaison update.
Great. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to give a couple quick updates, and I apologize. I am trying to navigate the sound issue. As far as I can tell, everyone can hear us. We're just having a little issue hearing them. And if folks chat, I will read them out if this continues to be an issue. So as Ryan mentioned, Melinda's not here. She's had 2 terms with HAC, and so we just want to thank her for her time and her commitment, and we will be recruiting for that position. We will also be recruiting, well, not recruiting, but we'll hold elections next month for anyone who's interested in the co-chair position. We have at least one person who's expressed interest, so if there's anyone else, please just reach out to me. You'll just need to prepare like a short statement so everyone can get to know you a bit more and your interest in the position. Also, we have a few folks who also have terms that are coming to an end this year with the option to renew or to apply again. You should, for those folks, they should have received an email from me and I believe there's like an automated update that goes out through the Granicus platform, which is the one that you applied on originally. I would just ask that if any of your plans or commitments have changed, to just let me know. Because other than that, we'll just base our recruitment on the data that we currently have. The other thing is regarding bylaws. We will, as Ryan said, we won't be having the vote today. We will hopefully have a vote at our meeting next month. So the bylaws that I shared that have the comments that reflect legal's recommendations, you can just look at that. And then I think if we have any further revisions, I'll send that out as soon as I have them. And that is it. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So it's now time for my update. So yes, I am currently alone as a solo co-chair for the moment. So if I encourage anyone that's interested to please throw their name in the hat. It's I will be here. I will help lead. It's always important to have two people. So not only if one of us is absent, but also in transition periods, like Melinda leaving, you know, I have some experience already to be able to help take over. So yeah, please throw your name in the mix. And I should know this because we just spent a year reviewing the bylaws, but do I need to be reelected as well at this time?
No, so I think and this was kind of some of the things that were being worked into the bylaws, so like the language of co-chairs instead of chair and vice chair. And then for to be able to stagger or overlap some of that, so we don't elect 2 new co-chairs every year. But like, so it would be, yours would be next year.
Makes sense.
For that, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Just making sure that I'm not doing something legal. That's all that I had.
Can we quickly, I think, sorry, I'm just also looking at Chriselle has a comment. Okay, so it might be that there's like a panelist situation that has actually.
Yeah, if they're made panelists, then they can speak.
So I did click off on the one that let them speak. There we go. Okay. So those are 2 different ones.
Oh, John has his hand up.
Oh.
Like basic communication. Can you raise your hand?
Raise hand.
Oh, okay, she beat me, okay. She accepted. There we go.
Hang in there, John. We're still figuring out our sound situation.
Can you hear us now?
Hey.
Oh, can you hear me?
Hi, John.
Yes.
Oh, hey. So if we have any comments on the bylaws, should we just email them in?
Yes.
Yes, that would be.
Should we just send them to Nadia and for circulation? Where do I email them? Just to the whole group, or what do I do?
Yeah, Nadia would be great.
Okay. Thank you.
Did Chriselle have a comment as well, or should we go on?
No, that was it.
Okay.
It was just about being, yeah.
All right, so if there's nothing else, any questions or comments there, we'll move on to new business. And the other Ryan in the room, Chief Financial Officer, has an update on the 2026-2027 budget discussion.
All right, while that slide gets loaded, I didn't put this in the presentation, but just a good time to share. You probably remember that in the 24 fiscal year, we did have audit findings that were material and we filed our audit late. So this most recent 2025 audit, we were on time and had a clean audit with no findings. So a testament to all the rigor and internal controls that we have been focused on in this department. On the budget front, Molly kind of touched upon it, but just giving you all an advance notice of what the next couple of months of meetings will look like. So I'm actually over on the right side of the slide right now. So in February next month, you can expect to see year-to-date financials for the current year. We'll be at a midway point. In March, we're in the thick of budget season right now, so our intent is to give you kind of a draft budget and the primer that Molly talked about the Housing Authority budget. Planning on coming back in May Similar to what we did this most recent year, where we actually ran through the entire proposed budget, looking for this group's recommendation at that point before we take it to our BOD, our board of directors in early June for full adoption. So giving you a heads up on that, I'm now going to bounce left a little bit and talk about process. So we are really being intentional about budgeting the Housing Authority and the Department of Housing Services concurrently. We had our annual report that was combined for the first time this year. So we're increasingly, even though we are two separate legal entities, we're trying to make sure that our operations and our communications are really one system that's providing end-to-end services to the community. So we'll be budgeting concurrently, and we're looking for different opportunities, even though, you know, the focus of this group is the Housing Authority, but still providing visibility into the entirety of the department's budget, since there are connections there. This is just an awareness piece, way too wonky, but we have a new financial system in the county that was implemented on January 1st, that has overall been a really successful and relatively smooth actual implementation. If anyone's been through financial implementation systems before, I think this one was relatively quiet so far. But it replaced a 23-year-old system with something contemporary. So with that comes an updated chart of accounts. And so that's just the way that we present and track our budget. So that will be new this year. So we'll have a little bit of crosswalking to do. But most of that we're really trying to keep quiet on our end, and the product that everybody else sees should be relatively similar. The risks that we're looking at for budgeting this year, Molly already talked about this. Federal appropriations stays top of mind. I'll talk through that a little bit, at least about what the draft conference bill is circulating through Congress right now. The other thing is, well, at the same time, HUD is putting out new regulations, specifically around cash management. Right now, housing authorities are trying to figure out what the regulations mean. They don't have the full rule set behind it yet. So we're operating off of notices from HUD about what their intent is of how we manage cash, but still looking at the finer point of the regulatory framework we're putting in place. So an ongoing risk there that is really related to what the appropriations look like as HUD looks to have different levels of control over housing authorities. And the last one is with all of our construction projects is just the timing around funding that we would get from the state, just running on two different budgeting cycles. So always looking at anticipating when funds will come in, when deals will close, when construction will finish. So that's a routine risk, but just something that we're thinking about during budgeting. So that was it for a budget update. So if there are questions, I'm happy to take those now. Otherwise, we are in the thick of it with my new buddy Steve here, with looking to have a draft submitted to the county, at least for our Department of Housing Services budget by February 9th. But again, we're really trying to sync those timelines up, just so that as an entity, we're thinking through budgeting at the same time.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Any questions or comments? I didn't forget to say I was born in Lafayette, Indiana. I'm a Purdue fan. We've got bad years. It's okay. All right. So next up, Lisa and Jill, the real estate division manager and the assistant director, have some project updates for us.
I'll start off with saying that we're presenting a number of projects related in the real estate side. And in the past, we may have presented to you all before we went to our board or our county commissioners. What we're doing now as a practice is every single project that goes to either the Board of County Commissioners or the Housing Authority Board of Directors, we would like to present to the HAC. Sort of, if we can't make it before, we would at least like to make sure that you're appraised after we've gotten approval. It's just, from my perspective, sort of good housekeeping, making sure our advisory committee is, giving us feedback we're seeking feedback and making sure that any comments, any suggestions you might have, we have taken that into consideration, especially as we plan also our upcoming months and what we're going to do with our real estate strategy and how you fit in that as well. So the first project that we're going to be talking about is our Aloha 209 Metro Concept endorsement to the Board of County Commissioners. As Molly mentioned, that one has already been approved. Sorry about that, we did it a little bit late. So this is just going to be a quick update. And next slide, please. What we wanted to talk with you about is just a reminder of what the project is, timeline, community engagement, and the financing. As background, this is a site, next slide, please. This is a site that is north of 209 and TV Highway, whereas the pod was south. This was a site that was purchased by Metro with their site acquisition plan. It is about a 3-acre site abutting, you can see it on the west portion. It is a wetland. We anticipate working with Metro to do some of the mitigation and using that wetland as a community resource. We have already received a Nature in Neighborhoods grant from Metro. That was $750,000. And we're going to be working to produce the 87 units, mostly of family-sized units. You'll also see that there is a sizable number of 30% area median income units. Those are unsubsidized, meaning the project will not have vouchers. It's just folks who are coming in who are low income. There's also a sizable number of ADA units, type A, and 2/3 are family-sized units. I will hand over to Lisa to do all the project details. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Jill. So in terms of our project timeline, we're just coming up on 100% design development, which means that our pre-development design is almost complete. And we'll be going through an internal review process on that. I'll show you a filament, kind of where we're at. And our funding application to OHCS is in the queue. So there are 2 phases of that funding application. The first one is just an intake application. The second one is an impact assessment, which is pretty extensive. And we've completed our impact assessment, and now we're hearing back from OHCS as they review the materials. But we do understand that funding won't be available until early 2027. So we're just moving through our process, understanding that we have through the end of the year to complete these other activities, which include selecting an investor and lender, submitting plans and permits, doing some contractor bidding. And we're looking to start construction probably in early 2027. In terms of our financing, we have lots of, next slide, please. Sorry, I did it on my computer and it didn't happen up there. And I was like, what's happening?
I was like, do you know that this is not the channel?
Why more copies? This project is an 87 unit family project. It's a big project, and we're working with Metro. Their SAP funds are what purchased the property originally, and we are in an MOU with them, and we'll be moving to a DDA, a disposition and development agreement, and then eventually moving into some form of leasehold on property. And we're applying for 4% tax credits. We're assuming we'll have a permanent loan and lift funds. And we do need to defer some developer fee in order to, and contribute some developer fee as well in order to make this project happen. We also received a Nature Neighborhood grant. That's the NIN grant up there from Metro, about $700,000, and we have a sponsor loan for the difference. There is a small amount of cash flow anticipated once the project is up and running. So And you can see we're looking at about a $35 million construction budget. I did want to just take a minute for this group and for the community at large, next slide, to talk about the Metro concept endorsement and approval process. So we have to go to Metro and get their approval of the concept, and then we have to go back later and get a final approval. So in this early stage, it is a big application. We have to provide them with all of our due diligence and all of our approvals. Our board requires that they actually recommend before we send over. Not every jurisdiction is like that, but that's what we do. And so we're trying to sync up our timing so that we come to this committee and this committee can actually take a look at these projects and give us some feedback and input as well. You can see here, there's a layout of the property, and over on the far right is the wetland that we'll be preserving. We will be looking to partner with a community or neighborhood group that would steward that property, probably through some form of an easement agreement. And so if any of you know of any community groups in that area that do environmental or park stewardship, we would love any referrals that you may have. We also are looking at a building that has a bike room, a community room, a food pantry, resident service provider office. We also, adjacent to the laundry, will have a little person's playroom, so that while parents are doing the laundry, they can look over.
Now little persons.
And so there'll be like a big glass window and a door, and kids can play while mom or dad are doing the laundry. And then we have an ample property management office, as well as maintenance office, an area to store maintenance tools and maintenance on each of the floors. We are, I think we've landed on sort of a forest green scheme with like a kind of an orangey pop. And you can see in the courtyard there's a playground, and there's this connection between that open space in the courtyard and the wetlands. Of course, we are also kind of taking a look now at like, how do you have that connection, but also have security, and all those kinds of things. So there are pieces to figure out. And so we were asking Hawk to recommend that the board approve this. I don't know if we want to go forward with that at this point or not, because the board already has approved. If we want to have any kind of a discussion about the project, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We're also looking at a one-to-one parking, and on the bottom of I think this is the north side. If you go south, it looks like south, but we're also looking at having a community garden for folks to do some planting. We find there's a lot of participation in the gardening program at our Mount Free. So, yes.
Just a comment. I think it's congratulations to the Housing Authority and the partnership. You don't see many capital budgets with a land number of 0. And again, I think to the extent that the partnership with Metro allows that to happen, it's great. There's probably something on the expense side, or is there going to be some lease number or something? But it's so rare to see that on the capital budget. So I think that's great. On the NIN grant, so what do you have to do by taking that grant in? So is it, I can't really tell, but is that a trail and like a boardwalk around the wetlands? And then just does it cover whatever you're going to do, or is it something where there might be additional funding over time to support kind of the maintenance, if you will, of protecting that wetland space? So it's just sort of what's involved, like how much is that covering all my costs, what we're trying to do, or that's some of the early money and you still might need more for the wetlands piece?
Great questions. We are using those funds. The entire site is a wetland, but the portion that we're preserving, we think is the one most worth preserving, the one where the state wants us to maintain it. So those funds are being used to sort of mitigate the wetlands conditions across the entire site so that we can create the open space on that end. It's going to be an elevated walkway with sort of opportunities to sort of pause and more passive than active. And we're trying to make sure that it's not going to be a racetrack for the kids, for the little people. So just trying to figure out what that looks like. I think for us, in an ideal scenario, we would find a partner that has the resources and the acumen to maintain the site long-term as a community amenity and as part of their portfolio versus something that is a drawdown of funds and operations. So that's the goal. That's the dream. So if you have any recommendations of folks that we can work with to do that, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, it's John. Just, this is like minor stuff, but I'm just curious because the whole site originally, you said it was wetlands, you're sort of moving the water around, I guess. Is there issues with flooding? Do you have to build these buildings up at all or anything? I mean, is there flood zoning on this site or not?
Not flooding or anything like that. It is, there are actually two spaces that are wetlands. The part of the east side, that is the larger or less mitigatable. So part of the building, we actually have a need to do some of the structural, like shoring up and also building up almost like a retaining wall so that the ground itself is more solid.
Okay, I mean, I said you got it all figured out. And the only thing I have is with children on site, is this wetlands really low water or is it a water issue with kids? And do you have to put up some sort of fencing?
It's more of a wetland. It's not just big water, it's just a lot of water.
Okay.
So you'll see the
low but spread.
Maybe I'm getting too micro here. I just know, I think I always tell you, if you're looking for an investor, they're going to start asking all these questions about risk of kids and water and stuff. So I guess I'm prepping you for your answers.
No, yeah, and that's a good one because the one north to that is actually, I believe, part of a community and Intel sort of wetland. And then on the side of TV Highway, Intel actually has like a pond that they use to their site.
All right.
John, I was going to say part of the OHCS, the environmental review process is a risk assessment too, is you can't develop in a floodplain. That's just part of the funding.
Okay.
So yeah, there is.
So that's not an issue. Okay, I saw wetlands. Okay, all right. Sounds like you got it all figured out. Thanks.
A great comment about the kids. That safety isn't a part of that process.
Yeah, I think part of the design goal is to make sure it's not a space where kids are climbing down into the water where they're staying.
Doing cannonballs off the
and that's in some ways that's programmatic, right? And our resources team and property management team are going to have to all be on board with how to educate and train and support the kids and families doing the right thing over there.
All right, because they haven't asked yet. I'm sure funders are going to get around to that question. So anyways, okay.
Thanks for the heads up. We'll honor about it and make sure we've got some.
Okay, any other questions on ALOA 209?
Are there planned service partnerships or how are resident services attended?
We're right now in the process of selecting a resident service partner. There is no permanent supportive housing on this property. So we're not needing the supportive services. We anticipate that we need folks who are more familiar with the community. This is a highly immigrant community, a lot of Latinos. And because these are mostly family-sized units, probably somebody who has familiarity with dealing with low-income children.
But they'll have dedicated space. The service partner will have dedicated space and office.
Oh, yeah. Yes, we already have that also. Yeah.
There's an office and a community room. There's also a nice lobby area and then the kind of early ed room.
Question, you said 12% roughly of 30% under AMI, which is amazing, right? Serving the community, but without vouchers. How's that getting subsidized or?
It's a cross subsidy between the 60% area median income and the 30%.
Gotcha.
That's what we figured, or with our consultants, is the maximum we could go without jeopardizing the financial integrity.
Yeah, and just pointing out, affordable housing, it's a little over 600K a unit. And it's crazy how expensive it is to do affordable housing these days with, a lot of that's
With
regulatory.
no land.
And yeah.
That's just Jill drawing the line and saying you cannot exceed this number.
I will actually mention, Ryan, this is one of the higher risk projects for us because, as Lisa said, we did draw a line in the sand. This is costing about $665,000 a unit, and it's because it's mostly family size. Originally, when it came in with the costing, it was over $800,000.
Yeah.
And
So
also
holding this line on cost per unit means we, as housing authority, will really have to sit on top of the construction.
Yeah, and also the environmental and the structural, the kind of piers that have to be put in to build the building, structural piers and that.
Yeah. But there's conversations there too, because it's, we're doing projects on the coast, rehabs that are 550, but then we're doing new construction in Eastern Oregon that's coming in at 275. There's a lot to talk about there on the cost of affordable housing, regulations and greed, to be honest. So.
Well, we need to be, to the extent the more we can do apples to apples comparison of new construction per market versus affordable to isolate what those costs are. Always want, children are very keen on that. Spent a lot of our previous years looking at that, but also understanding there's embedded, some additional soft costs for LIHTC, and it's obviously well makes up for itself in equity, but it just to those talking points for that narrative. Generally, we've seen hard construction costs for the same. It's not a big marginal difference between market and affordable, but we need to know if there's certain regulations that are either state or local that are contributing to these costs that are specific to subsidized housing. And then because we do want to talk about that as part of our legislative priorities as well.
John, did you have looks like you froze.
Yeah. No, he's still there.
Oh, he's still there. Oh, I see him thinking.
Are you asking about me?
Yeah, I
I'm
thought you
still
had a
here.
question.
The only thing I was gonna say around the costs, which might be useful, is like a project like this for talking to people in the public and or legislators. Is I think we always have a tendency to say affordable housing just costs more because of all the the grants we get, and they give us land that's not prime, and so it costs more to develop it, and blah blah blah. I think as Molly said, if you could really break out hard costs, and then instead of just saying at a high hyperbole level, there's all these other things like lawyers and accountants, and if you really could break out the numbers and prove to people like, here's our hard costs, but we're on this site, we're doing wetlands, which costs this, which is a park for the community and for us, right? Because it's affordable housing, we also added these community spaces for kids, which added this. And then, instead of just sort of talking in general numbers, maybe we really should prove to people like, here's how the numbers play out, and this is what we're giving you. I don't know. It's just a suggestion. I think people always just talk about in general terms. It just costs more, and that's all they just say, right?
Thank you,
I
John.
love that. I do think we need, when we present to the public, because the other part of it is we're more exposed. We're very open with the public. We're putting those numbers out. Private sector folks don't have to do that. But I do think there's a bigger conversation of how we tell that bigger story. Like, do we differentiate the numbers? So it's not just total development costs. We differentiate hard for just residential is going to be X dollars.
Right.
And then And you're gonna get these additional things for these additional costs.
Right. I think you have to be careful what you present and don't present, but I think sometimes the story can be a little better than just talking in generalities.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's a great point, John, and I think the fact that the wetlands and the wetland mitigation is gonna cost a lot more than our nature and neighborhoods grant. It's probably gonna be even costing more than the land cost itself. That's why in the uses and sources, the land cost was actually valued at 0 because it's actually a negative. It's actually negative into it in order to develop the site.
And what, if you know, what's your average square footage for a unit? I mean, is it a 2.5 bedroom? And so whatever it is, if it's a real number, I think that also can help the presentation when people say, well, 600 is a big number, 600,000, but if you have it mapped against a 3-bedroom apartment that's X square feet, again, then I think people can start to say, well, you couldn't build a house, you couldn't buy a house for that. So just, I think having your own, I don't want to say defensive talking points, but informative talking points to counter, feedback that's too much money.
Yeah, excellent point. Affordable housing does tend to be slightly bigger per unit than market rate.
Yeah.
Well, there also are often more amenities on site, so more community space, depending on what level of market you're looking at. And we have BOLI and other kind of wage obligations.
Any other comments on ALOA 209? If not, next slide. Next slide, there you go. The next one is the Forest Grove Permanent Supportive Housing. This is a project that we will be presenting to our board of directors on February 2nd. Molly mentioned, this was also one that we presented to the Forest Grove City Council. We are looking forward to presenting a resolution for the project pre-development activities. Next slide, please. The genesis of the Project Growth PSH, we'll talk about summary, background, partners, and some of the timelines. Pretty much the same information that we went through for ALOA 209. A little bit of background about Forest Grove PSH, next slide please, is that the project itself has already been presented to Oregon Housing and Community Services. We participated as a member of the Permanent Supportive Housing Institute back in last year. And we also already received concept endorsement from Metro to use some funds for this particular project for PSH. This is using funds from Metro's Permanent Supportive Housing Project. Our partners are Central Culturel and Care Oregon. Central Culturel is coming in as a resident service provider, and they are very grounded in Forest Grove. They are the manager of a community and senior center that's about a mile away. They also are the operator of Casa Ampara, which is in Cornelius, which is also about a mile away on the other side. And very familiar with all the community. Care Oregon has also already provided us a $3 million grant. And you'll see that as we go into it. The project is really to serve homeless, formerly homeless individuals and couples. This is not intended for a family. This is purely singles and couples. Up to 60 homes with culturally specific services provided by Central. I'll pass it over to Lisa in just a minute, but originally this project, I should say, was originally we had intended for this project to be on another site, but we determined that that Elm Street site was not as good as this particular site. You'll see this is on Pacific Avenue, which is really the main street in Forest Grove and Cornelius. So this site is a lot closer to public transportation. To the east of it is also the, gosh, I just forgot the name of it. It's a grocery store.
Does it say, I'm not picturing where it's at.
It's across the street from Safeway, but the,
All right.
Bylaws, yes.
By
It's
right
next door
or-
to the by right, and it's
To the,
it's right where the street kind of splits.
yes,
Where the
okay,
street splits on your right.
yeah. And it is a former, car repair shop. So,
Oh, okay.
It was Jim's Auto Body.
Yeah.
Jim's Auto Body, that's been sort of that new
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
So because again, it is an auto shop, we also took a time to do the acquisition. And do the environmental review, so I'll pass it over to Lisa, next slide. Please.
Okay, Bill already covered that these are our partners and this is the work that we're doing. But I thought I would just take a minute to talk about the community benefits associated with this project. This is going to be the first permanent supportive housing of this magnitude in this part of the county. There are a few smaller 10, 15 unit PSH properties in this part of the county, but what I really am excited about this project is that it is going to serve a part of the county that currently doesn't have those services. So it's going to promote the housing stability and reduce chronic homelessness in the West County and address that homelessness locally in Forest Grove with long-term housing solutions. It also is going to advance access and opportunity, which is a goal of ours here at the county, with culturally specific services for the Latino community in partnership with Central Cultural, and on-site resident services and case management, as well as proximity to community resources. It's very close to the senior center, the library, that date access center, and it's next door to a grocery store. So there's just a lot of, and it's also on a transit line. So there's a lot of ways in which the property is ideal. Next slide. So we've completed our due diligence on this property, at least in terms of our pre-design due diligence work. And we're looking to, now we're in our financial feasibility and mapping that out. We come to this deal with almost $10 million in gap financing, which is so rare and really nice considering all the other challenges associated with the PSH project. To come to the table at this juncture with that amount of gap financing is really great. We are going to apply to OHCS for both 9% LIHTC and operating subsidies. So OHCS provides service and rental subsidies for PSH. And because we were in the PSHI program, we actually get prioritized. This property will get prioritized, which is fantastic. Next slide. We also have a little bit of environmental work to do. Surprisingly, this property didn't have that much remediation, given that it was an auto body shop, but I have found in my career that it's those auto body shops in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and this one was actually started in the 80s. So
It's
way
not
on the
that
right side.
bad.
Yeah. Trust me, I've worked on a few of those. So we do expect that once we knock down the building, there may be a little more there than we realized, but we did phase 1, a phase 2, a geotech, and made sure that that we really weren't going to have major amount of remediation. We brought in Sarah Architects for initial feasibility, and we've been working with HDC, and we'll continue to work with them through the application period. And then we're kind of moving into all the legal things that you need to do. And that's what we'll be going to you and then to Pabad for is approval to kind of move forward with all the legal actions and administrative actions that we need to take in order to bring this project to fruition in early stages. Next slide.
So this is where we are, planning and funding. We'll be putting out RFPs and RFQs for an architect, a service provider, a general contractor. And we're looking probably early 2027. So I sort of see this project in LOA 209 as twinsies on in terms of their schedule. They're going to be in lockstep and pretty close to one another. Next slide. So today we're asking HAC to recommend that HABAD, the Housing Authority Board of Directors, approve the resolution and order authorizing the executive director, actually we didn't revise the slide, and deputy director or designees to form entities, support applications for funding, execute required project documents, and provide a pre-development loan of up to $2.5 million. I do want to note that that pre-development loan will partly be made up of the Care Oregon funds. So the Care Oregon portion of the Care Oregon funds, about I think 1.3 million were used for the purchase of the property. There's a balance. We'll put that into the pre-development loan, and the remainder will come from HOC funds that we have on hand from previous developer fees and residual seeds and other fees for projects that we have in our 401. Okay, next slide, please. Any questions, comments?
I did have one last comment just to round it out. We presented this project to the Forest Grove City Council, and they were very supportive. They actually wanted us to also opine on their building code to help them in terms of looking at how to promote more housing.
One question. So how does the Housing Authority get into or on the PSH Institute? Like, is that something where you just attend or you sponsor, or what do you have to do to become part of that? And then the related question is just you get priority because you're participating in the Institute. So you're quite confident that you're going to get the state funding and for credits and services?
I think I'll respond since Lisa wasn't here when we applied to the Institute. We actually had to make an application, have a site, have a team.
Okay.
And it is the requirements of OHCS to get into the Institute is you have to have a developer, owner. You can bring in a consultant. They wanted to have your partners in place as well, resident property management and or other providers. So in this particular case, we had ourselves, Central Cultural and Oregon go in, and the three parties all attended the different PSHI program, and it was, I believe, for 6 months, and 6 members participated. So on our side, it was both the development side as well as our asset management side, and also our voucher team also attended occasion.
Okay, wow, that's great.
And do we get a priority into funding? We get a priority for the PSH gap funds only, as well as the operating support and any rental support. We don't necessarily get priority on the 9% LIHTC. So in the OHCS system, we can apply for both the 9% and the PSH only. If we get accepted into either or both, we have to choose which path to take.
Okay.
I believe this is more of a soft vote per se, or soft, like, because I don't believe.
We're still not a quorum, right?
We did just until John. I don't know. I don't know if maybe he just had a technical issue because I don't think he said it. Well, let's see. Oh no, he did. Okay, yeah, he had to leave. We'll just take that out. Yeah, so we have 4, 2, so 6 out of 13. So yeah.
So this is not a formal vote then, right now, yeah, this is we'd love a thumbs up, middle down, in terms of confidence.
Thumbs up.
Vote of confidence?
Yes, everyone wants,
yes.
vote of confidence, thumbs up. If you have reservations, maybe do middle. Anything, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big PSH project, right? I mean, I would just encourage that, you know, kind of, as a new big PSH project, that behavioral healthcare really kind of be at the forefront of operating the property,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you're gonna need some operational property management support and that type of thing, but that, you know, kind of the day-to-day interaction is really kind of adequately and operationally staffed appropriately.
Yeah. I think our experience with Heartwood has really come into play.
Yeah, it's almost the same size, right? But that was also staged, you know, so depending on how fast this ramps up, you're gonna have 60 brand new folks,
Yeah.
you know, all coming together at the same time under the same roof. And that has challenges for sure.
Yeah.
And one of the big issues for any PSH is that lease up and making sure that this building is still stable while you're at lease up.
Mhm.
And getting the referrals and getting.
OHCS recently came out with new PSH regulations and guidelines. We had a lovely study session on them here on our team. I
Yeah.
went through them. They're actually requiring one case manager per 15 residents.
good.
Whereas we're at like 1 to 20 in most of our other properties here in the county. But if we have the state funding, I think we'll be able to pull that off.
That's gonna help.
Yeah, so there would be 4 full-time case managers at the property, which will help a lot in addition to resident services. So
Yeah.
with Central.
It's not completely random that 15 times 4.
Right.
But
And
yeah,
if we need to change that number, it'll probably be 45.
but you're right, there is a concentration. Yeah. Like, Nathan or Len Kinley, do you guys have any questions or concerns? Or
They
thumbs
both
up?
gave thumbs up.
None at this moment, no. If I formulate more some, I'll definitely ask.
Nathan, putting you on the spot. All right, Nathan, come back.
Okay,
Okay.
the next slide.
So that's the first PSH in Forest Grove.
That is the first of PSH in Forest Grove, and actually for the whole county, I believe this will be the second, Hartwood being the first, the second PSH is 100% PSH. What we have always supported is the integral PSH, where you have a few units in a larger building. The need for the county is much more also focused on singles and couples. So
Yeah.
that's part of the reason why the housing authority is moving this direction, because in the need for the county is that there is this need, especially for singles and couples where adults are not necessarily.
Then just looking on the horizon. In the spring, when we come back with the real estate strategy, the first part of that strategy is really figuring out who we are as a builder developer in the county and what our role is going to be moving forward now that we've gone through this first fire hose of metro funds, right, on the metro affordable housing and the SHS. And you know what we can handle as an organization in terms of how much PSH we balance out in our portfolio. So we're making commitments to Heartwood and a commitment to this project. But beyond that, we're going to want this committee's feedback on sort of what that is going to look like for us in the long term.
It's good to hear you're working with Forest Grove Building Department as well. Great people. I've had some projects get stalled because they say, just give it to us and we'll tell you who's reviewing it, and then pieces of it fall out of the review queue. Because the county has to review some of it, they have to review some of it, so be careful there.
That's good to know, and we also already have gone through with the architect, Sarah Architect, about sort of just understanding what are we gonna have to seek exemptions for. Okay. Next slide, please, if no questions. Next project, sorry, this is a lot of real estate projects. The last one, this is another one that we're gonna be bringing to the Housing Board of Directors on February 2nd. Is a request for us to participate as special limited partner in Brentwood Oaks Limited Apartments LP. Next slide, please. A little bit of background on Brentwood Oaks and Special Limited Partner. We're just bringing to you a project about how we work in using our property tax exemption. We will be bringing back a larger framework about how property tax exemption comes about and what we think of, as Lisa mentioned, our role in real estate and how we work with different partners and how we work along that, you can call it housing spectrum. In this particular one, we are coming in just as a limited partner, just to help a project through. We'll talk a little bit about the project itself, the partnership proposal, key terms, and recommended actions. Next slide. And a little bit about Brentwood Oaks. You'll see that's a building. This is a project that is with DevCo. DevCo itself is a for-profit developer owner. They are already partnered with Housing Authority in another project called Gateway Commons. They came to us for property tax exemption because they're having some difficulty in the project itself, and property taxes are substantial if they do not have the nonprofit tax exemption, which they do not have. So they're asking us to help them because as a housing authority, with us in the ownership program, we actually can help them with property tax exemptions. I'm gonna hand it over to Lisa so she can talk a little bit more about the project and our program.
So this project really represents a program that we have here for partnerships and tax exemptions where Hawk is a special limited partner and the developer gets a real estate tax abatement as a result of providing affordable housing under 80% area median income. We're now starting to kind of formalize what this program is and the deal points that we offer, and this project has really provided us that opportunity to set up our template, which we'll probably be bringing back to you this spring as well. And what it does is it preserves the long-term senior housing. It supports the financial sustainability of the property. This property does have some financial challenges, and so by having less of a tax obligation, that will help its financials. And then by having us as a partner, we have the opportunity to review the financials and the key performance indicators on an annual basis and make sure that the property isn't having too many challenges, and find ways as a partner in the project to make sure that it stays healthy. The next slide, please. So our key terms are that there's an annual owner fee to Hawk. There's an annual administrative fee to Hawk. That Hawk is not obligated for any guarantees or any other financial obligations to the project. That we have a first right of refusal to purchase the property, as well as an option to purchase the property. And those last two are kind of key, which put us in kind of first position if the property ever does come up for sale, and allows us to be in a place to take that opportunity to bring the property into either our portfolio or the portfolio of a partner. So it just gives us leverage that we don't necessarily have now, or specifically as Hawk. I think there's broad option rights within Oregon state law, but not necessarily specific to Hawk. Next slide. So we're asking HAC to recommend that Chabad approve Hawk's participation as a special limited partner in Brentwood Oaks LP, including authorizing the executive director or deputy director to execute all required documents and instruments, join the limited partnership and submit the property tax exemption application. Next slide. Okay, questions, comments? Paul.
John would probably ask this question if you're on. So this deal already refinanced, so it was acquired 2022. And they went through some kind of recapitalization or refinance with new debt, new investor partner, things like that.
Yes, but they did not get new tax credits.
Okay, so I guess stepping back, because it seems like the optics are a little bit different, right? If you're coming in after kind of a bunch of deals have been cut versus before, let's say, they put debt in place. So the debt is challenged, it's not performing as well. So is there any desire, I guess, from Devco, or as you look at this opportunity, regardless of whatever the annual fee is for Hawk, to say that they should still do some kind of payment in lieu of a full waiver of taxes?
So we didn't put it specifically in the slide, but
Okay.
can I just walk through it? So we did some research.
Yeah.
We took a look at what other government entities are doing this sort of. You could call it a payment in lieu. It's not exactly a payment in lieu. It's just a fee. And we landed on 20% of what the tax exemption should be. We had seen the range has been 10 to 25 in most jurisdictions of the actual taxes. And so we landed on 20%. We're not going to calculate it on an annual basis. We're going to take 20% and it's going to have I think a 3% or a CPI factor every year. But yes, that is the approach that we're taking. Also, I do want to mention that Devco wrote down a certain amount of the debt on the property because the terms were not working as well. And so we've been working with them on a kind of a few other details related to that because they don't have as much debt as maybe another property would, but the property is still running at a loss each year. And so they are looking at a combination of addressing vacancies, addressing expenses, and this write down and our tax exemption are part of their overall plan.
Okay. And just a follow-up then. So when you look at their numbers and incorporate in whatever some version of a payment in lieu that they're going to still make for taxes, how much do you think the fee that you would be getting on an annual basis is at risk going forward? So that it's really just, I think it's great that you've eliminated the role to step in as any kind of guarantor. You've got this back end option, which is, I think, very important. But there is a point, if it really doesn't work very well, right, that you might be the deep pocket and your special limited partner role may be desired to be a bigger role. So how confident are you that their numbers are conservative enough on the new run that you're actually going to still get your fee? You're not going to go negative and just accrue fee.
Yeah, great questions. All things that we've been talking about with our attorney. So we are, that is why we have this provision in here that we will have provision in the documents that Hawk has no financial obligations to the project whatsoever as an SLP. And they have a guarantor for their payment to us if they're unable to pay out of the
Is a personal guarantee of the founder of Devco.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking.
Well, it is when somebody says, is this a good business decision?
Right.
But I think you need to say, we as a partner, and if you've seen their balance sheet, you sort of know, ideally there's some liquidity, but that the guarantor is meaningful and you can rely on that. So.
And for us, at least for me, having, closed Whispering seemed what difficulty it took to keep Whispering affordable. One of the main things we wanted to have is the control so that we could have the option to purchase. Not immediately because Devco has put so much money in, but after 10 years. So before it goes off regulatory.
It's a preservation play.
Yeah.
Long-term preservation, help with future potential negotiations that we hope will be more seamless. based on that.
Yeah.
It's not to say we have the resources to do that, but just trying to allow for a better negotiation.
Yeah, it's a strategic positioning and a tool I think that we could use more as an organization.
I know Devco through the industry, they're based out of Washington, they're a great organization as far as for-profit developers of affordable housing go, so. Just a personal note, they're good people and for the right reason, so. The buyout option, you mentioned your buyout options, what are theirs? Cause I don't know the difference between an LP and an SLP. So did they have like a 15-year, 30-year buyout option to remove you as that SLP?
That is not, at least right now, that's not what they've asked us to do. They've asked us to stay in there.
Okay.
And our option is the purchase.
Yeah.
They have not said, well, we want to kick you out.
Yeah, because they lose the nonprofit.
But they lose the ability to have any tax exemption. Because they cannot bring in a nonprofit and still, because for the nonprofit to have the nonprofit tax exemption, you actually have to have operating control for the nonprofit. And they right now.
Interesting.
So the housing authority was a partner in the previous partnership under the prior owner before the sale to Devco.
We were not. No, Devco had a nonprofit partner in there before we came in.
Oh, but I mean, prior to Devco purchasing the property.
No, we had no interest. We had no relationship with this project. This is the first time it's coming up.
Okay.
Dave's remembering a different file.
You know, it would be typical.
Could be deal merge.
to have-
but yeah.
Dave knows something we don't.
You know something?
It's possible, because we weren't all here at that time.
Yeah, no, nobody was here at the time, but yeah,
I think he's stating that as fact.
my understanding was that the housing authority was a limited partner, a special limited partner in the deal with previous ownership that achieved the tax exemption
That may have been.
until the property was sold. And I can't recall necessarily how the property was sold. I mean, if they, we weren't involved, and then we weren't involved, and we were involved again, we weren't involved, so.
Property was originally placed in service in 1999.
Correct.
So would have come through is the limited partnership would have, exited.
At some point in time, the county exited before the sale, was my understanding or recollection, but I may be wrong. Something to look at, but.
History's.
Any other questions or comments there? Are you're looking for a thumbs up today, or do you need an official vote on that next time? Thumbs up.
Dina?
Thumbs up, sorry, I apologize.
That came late?
Thumbs up for me.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you, Lisa and Jill. And if there's no further questions or comments, I think that brings us to the end, and we don't have to vote to end because we can't.
Great.
All right, thanks, everyone. See you next month.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.